Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports. And today is the second rendition of Mock Draft Monday. We're back after week one of the regular season. We're actually recording this during the games, specifically the Chicago LA Rams game on Sunday night. So they are not factored necessarily fully into this game, into this mock draft. Also, of course, the Ravens and Raiders are playing on Monday night. So this is coming out before that. So the order is not necessarily fully indicative of the end of the week one schedule, but this is as best as we can bring for you at this point for our Mock Draft Monday series. And now jumping into it, Austin, let's have them make sure that they hit the like and subscribe. Moving into pick one now, we do have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had a terrible loss today to the Houston Texans, Austin, your Jaguars did not look good today. At pick one, you have them going edge Kayvon Thibodeaux. Does he fix all their issues? And what did you see from Jacksonville today?
Jacksonville had a brutal showing against the Houston Texans, but let's get a little more focused on the pick individually speaking. He's definitely going to fix some things. Explosive athlete, a phenomenal edge that could perfectly complement Josh Allen, but this team needs a lot more than that. We saw there was a lot of glaring weaknesses on this team, especially at the tight end spot. They're going to get a little creative during this. Maybe they move down if they are the number one pick in this year's draft, but wow, that was atrocious to watch. I think Kayvon Thibodeaux can be that high impact player that Jacksonville needs. Obviously, they have the quarterback situation figured out, so now you got to build around him. Thibodeaux is a step in the right direction.
Right. In last week's mock, we had actually the Houston Texans projected to be the first overall pick. They went with a quarterback in that mock draft. And we talked about in that mock that it might not necessarily be quarterback first, especially depending on who gets the first pick in the draft. Here we see the Jaguars, after drafting Trevor Lawrence this past year, go with the top edge rusher in this year's class. Moving into pick two now, we have the Detroit Lions. They had a narrow loss in week one. Did not get it done, though. Jared Goff was a little up and down throughout that process, and you have them going with his replacement, Spencer Rattler, out of Oklahoma. Austin, break down what Rattler brings to Detroit.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler, dynamic, lively arm. I've talked about it a lot. There are some inconsistencies in his game. However, some of the best quarterbacks in the league had those inconsistencies in college, but had those physical traits to succeed at the next level. Spencer Rattler does have the athleticism and the arm strength to be that guy potentially. I think Detroit's going to be wowed by his physical traits, his tools, and what he has to work with. I think they feel pretty good about their infrastructure, especially along that offensive line and at running back and tight end. The big problem area for them is the quarterback spot and that wide receiver. Jared Goff, I definitely think is on the hot seat to be replaced. That was never the long-term option. That's not what they want to do. They want to draft a quarterback. Hopefully he can get a top 10 quarterback in the draft. I don't think Spencer Rattler is going to be that kind of guy, but I think they will be ready to replace Jared Goff at some point, and it could very well be after this year.
Right, a quarterback like Spencer Rattler who can help you make plays off of schedule. When he needs to go make a play when the receivers aren't getting open themselves, Spencer Rattler is going to be a massive upgrade over Jared Goff in that area. And I think this is an overall win for Detroit, getting a QB at 2. Moving into pick 3, we have my New York Jets here, Austin. A narrow loss to the Carolina Panthers today. Sam Darnold, of course, does defeat the New York Jets in his first game as a Carolina Panther. And you have us going here with a cornerback, Derek Stingley Jr. I think this is a massive need. You're looking at Javelin Guidry being one of the top 2 corners with Bryce Hall there. The Jets need help at cornerback. They've needed it since Darrelle Revis was a Jet. How much does Derek Stingley solve the cornerback issue for New York?
Derek Stingley is one of the best cornerback prospects ever, and I do not say that lightly because I think he is that talented, especially in man coverage. He's a lockdown guy, a guy that you can really trust in your secondary. And for me personally, I think the New York Jets are doing a great job, really prioritizing that cornerback spot. They've been missing a guy like Darrelle Revis. They haven't had that guy for years and years, or even a top tier corner. So Derek Stingley, huge upgrade.
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite players in the class so far from my own film study, and I know you're very high on Stingley as well, like you mentioned. I think he's an immediate upgrade for the New York Jets and someone that they can really build that defense around, especially when Carl Lawson comes back from injury at the start of next season as well. You're looking at a highly upgraded defense there for the New York Jets. Moving into pick 4, we have the Atlanta Falcons here, who had a very disappointing loss in week 1. They have a lot of fun weapons. Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts didn't necessarily get it going this week. We'll see if Arthur Smith's Falcons can get it going next week. But at this point, you have them looking for the long-term Matt Ryan replacement with quarterback Sam Howell out of North Carolina. Break down what he could bring to Atlanta.
Definitely a guy that you can trust in terms of precision, accuracy. Reminds me a little bit of Matt Ryan coming out of North Carolina here. And Sam Howell, people got a little low on him after week one. I think he still is going to be the first round pick. Maybe he does slide down people's boards a little bit. He doesn't have that big time arm or athleticism. However, I think he's able to stick around in that top 10 for sure. Sam Howell, good quarterback. Atlanta will be looking to draft one to eventually replace Matt Ryan, which could be sooner rather than later.
Right. In this rendition of Mock Draft Monday, we do see the North Carolina Tar Heel quarterback becoming the long-term replacement for former Boston College quarterback Matty Ice. Moving into pick 5, we have the New York Giants, who did not pull off their game today against the Denver Broncos, but they've heavily upgraded their secondary. And I think that partially plays into why you're not looking necessarily defense at this point, but instead the quarterback position, an upgrade over Daniel Jones. Malik Willis, who's lit it up for Liberty the first 2 weeks of the college football season. What do you love about Malik Willis's game?
Malik Willis has the things that you really can't teach. It's speed and arm strength. And this guy is super agile. He's an improviser in the pocket. And you had mentioned prior the off-schedule plays. That's what he is really, really great at. So Malik Willis, obviously under the radar because he plays at Liberty. However, he's a he's a big play guy, a guy that's super, super dynamic with his legs as well. And the New York Giants will be probably a little frustrated with Daniel Jones's turnovers. We've seen it early on in the season here that he is a turnover-prone quarterback and not a guy necessarily that you want to build around. So I think getting Malik Willis is a huge upgrade.
Right. Malik Willis has also surprised me so far this year with his ability to make throws outside the numbers. He had a beautiful throw just yesterday from the time we're recording this. That really surprised me. I didn't think that he had that type of arm. Really surprised me in his play yesterday, and I think he's going to continue to impress throughout the college football season. And maybe we see him even climb a little bit higher than 5th overall when it's all said and done. Pick number 6, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. Like I said, they have not played their week 1 matchup at this point, so it's very possible they'd be picking later in next week's mock. We'll see exactly how that goes. They do play the Baltimore Ravens on Monday night. But here, Austin, you have them going with interior defensive lineman DeMarvin Leal. Defensive line has been a huge sticking point for John Gruden and Mike Mayock. Why is DeMarvin Leal the pick here out of Texas A&M?
They are completely shifting how their identity looks on the offensive and defensive line. They're wanting to shake it up, make some changes. DeMarvin Leal is a dominant defensive lineman. He can play inside, he can play outside at the edge spot. He has a ton of versatility along that defensive line, and this has been a popular pick of mine for the Raiders. I think when it comes to the actual draft time, I think this is very realistic to happen with his versatility, his ability to get after the quarterback, and also how he does defend the run. So he's very, very good in all of those areas, and I think that the Raiders are definitely going to be thinking about the trenches in this upcoming draft.
For sure, one of the top players in this year's class. We've already seen 3 QBs go in the top 5, so one of the top players in DeMarvin Leal slides a little bit down to 6. I think this is a phenomenal grab for Las Vegas and someone that they can really look to build around on that defensive front. There was, of course, the rumors with Khalil Mack, so they're definitely interested in still adding more talent on that defensive front, and I think DeMarvin Leal is the answer for that at pick 6. Sliding into pick 7 now, we have the New York Giants' second pick. This one comes from the Chicago Bears. Reminder, this is recorded prior to the final for the Bears, so possibly this pick could be lower in next week's mock as well. But here you have them going with interior offensive lineman Darian Kinnard out of the University of Kentucky. Austin, what does he bring, and is he a big-time piece for Malik Willis to build up that offensive front?
Yeah, so for the New York Giants, I think it makes a lot of sense to look at that line. They've done a pretty good job building this team as a whole. I do have some questions about the interior part of that offensive line. Kinnard, he's nasty. He's a nasty guy in the run, a big player. And we know, historically speaking, that the New York Giants love to take big players, guys that have a little bit of grit and grind to them as well. Dave Gettleman loves size. So Kinnard is going to be the perfect fit for this offensive line.
Yeah, Dave Gettleman's got a little bit of NBA GM to him when it comes to drafting size. Definitely does prefer bigger players, and from the picture here, you can tell how big Darian Kinnard really is. I like this fit for New York. I think if you're drafting a quarterback, you need to give him some help up front too, and also I think Kinnard's going to be really helpful to Saquon Barkley, who just didn't really look good today in week 1, didn't have a ton of numbers, and I think could use a little bit more help from his trench play. Moving into pick 8, we have Washington, the Washington football team here. A narrow loss to the Los Angeles Chargers today. Of course, Ryan Fitzpatrick goes down with a serious hip injury, according to Adam Schefter. So I think that there is probable real chance that they look at the quarterback position. And you have him here going with quarterback Matt Corral from Ole Miss. What does he bring to Washington?
Once again, a guy that's projectable with some traits. I think he's another playmaker that Washington could use. Taylor Heineke is not the long-term option at quarterback. Neither is Ryan Fitzpatrick. They have nobody else on the roster that really has that future to them. So you go ahead, take a quarterback in Matt Corral. I think he has some humongous upside. He arguably has the strongest arm in the entire class as well. So something to keep in mind when evaluating a quarterback. You want to make sure that they got that big-time arm. I think Corral has that. And for Washington, they're one quarterback away from being super, super competitive. I'm shocked that they didn't try to push a little more to go up and get a guy like Justin Fields in the draft. However, plays out for them here. And then, next year is going to be their serious year of contention with a guy like Matt Corral.
We talked about this in last week's mock. They have the weapons there. Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson. They've got a lot of nice pieces. It's really about finding the quarterback. Matt Corral here in this rendition of your mock draft is the answer for them, and I like that fit a lot there for Ron Rivera's football team. Pick number 9, we have the Minnesota Vikings here, and if anything rings true from today's game, cornerback play is a big-time need. Bashaud Breeland, Patrick Peterson, two older cornerbacks who I don't think necessarily have a long-term future there in Minnesota. Bashaud Breeland got penalized a little bit this week as well. And Austin, you actually have them going with the safety to help over the top in this, and it's another Notre Dame safety. Of course, Harrison Smith came from Notre Dame himself. Kyle Hamilton, this must just be best player available, and also to help out the secondary.
This is absolutely best player available. I think that cornerback is a definite need. The whole Jeff Gladney thing with him being released, not a good situation there, but they want to take corner at this spot. But Kyle Hamilton is just too good to pass up. He's 6'4", he's rangy, he's a good tackler, great instincts, all around very, very talented safety. So with that, Kyle Hamilton going at number 9 is great value. I think this is one of the best picks in the draft, and getting him here at this spot is a huge steal for the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of it, like we had mentioned, the quarterbacks generally will push down some of these really, really talented players, and we see that here with Kyle Hamilton.
Right, this is a phenomenal grab for the Minnesota Vikings. Just thinking about the duo of Harrison Smith and Kyle Hamilton is something that should keep offensive coordinators up at night. A lot of playmaking ability on the defensive side of the ball, and I think Kyle Hamilton could easily be a top 3 player from this class when it's all said and done. Minnesota grabbing him at 9, phenomenal value like you talked about. Moving into pick 10, we have the Tennessee Titans. A really disappointing start to the season for them. Just got outplayed by Arizona pretty much in every single level of the game. So, Austin, you have them going here with offensive tackle Evan Neal. Does Chandler Jones' 5 sacks today play into this selection?
Yes and no. I think we've kind of hidden the whole Tennessee doesn't need offensive line just because of Derrick Henry's success, but I think they definitely have to consider it. Evan Neal, once again, a potential top 5 level player, falls to number 10 because of positional value and other positional needs for the other teams. But he's a high impact guy, can be a true franchise left tackle. You can put him at right tackle, you can put him at guard. I have a feeling he's going to be great wherever he plays, and Tennessee is getting great value at number 10.
Right, and like you and I expect, Tennessee probably won't be at 10 when the actual draft comes either. So grabbing Evan Neal would be an absolute dream come true for Tennessee. Think about how good Derrick Henry could be if he did have a better offensive front in front of him. Pick number 11, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. This pick comes from the Indianapolis Colts. With Carson Wentz starting today, we are projecting that he will meet that 75% threshold on the season to have this pick conveyed to the Philadelphia Eagles from the trade. And with this pick, you have them going with Ahmad Gardner, one of my favorites in this draft, the Cincinnati Bearcat, a phenomenal man-to-man cover corner. Why is he the pick here for Philly?
Because the Philadelphia Eagles have to address the secondary. I think that's pretty clear what they need to do in that secondary at safety and corner. They're going to kind of rebuild this defense. They're a lot different than they were a couple of years ago when they were that dominant defense when they won the Super Bowl. They're quite a bit off from that, aging a little bit as well. They need some help in the secondary. And like you had mentioned, Ahmad Gardner, terrific man-to-man corner.
Right, he could be a key lockdown corner for them in that division. You've got guys like Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and others as well. Very tough division. You need top-end cornerback play, and Ahmad Gardner, in my opinion, is going to bring that almost on day 1 of his NFL career. Pick 12, we do have the NFC East rival Dallas Cowboys here, and you have them going with the cornerback of their own, Andrew Booth from Clemson. Talk about his rise into the first round here and what he could bring to Dallas.
So looking at the Dallas Cowboys, they have Trayvon Diggs. They're trying to figure out their secondary, trying to piece it together. They are going to be a lot more competitive than people were expecting, and they came out in a really interesting fashion, just throwing the ball a ton against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're not afraid to change things up. But Andrew Booth Jr. is going to be a phenomenal addition to this secondary. They're going to prioritize the secondary because we were all surprised last year. We thought the whole way through that it's going to be Surtain or Farley or J.C. Horn as their pick, but they opted to go with Micah Parsons, the linebacker. And I think later on we will see that is for salary cap reasons in case they have to move on from one of their highly paid linebackers. So Andrew Booth Jr. he fills a humongous need in the secondary for the Dallas Cowboys.
Right. We saw Trayvon Diggs take a pretty sizable step up, honestly, in week one compared to where he was at last year. We tried telling Cowboys fans that we think, hey, he could be a good corner. He just wasn't last year. And I still think cornerback number 2 is a massive need. We saw Anthony Brown get cooked repeatedly on Thursday nights. I think that Andrew Booth Jr. is going to be a massive upgrade for them. Pick 13, we have the Buffalo Bills here. Disappointing loss to the Steelers today. They did have 4 fumbles. Only lost one of those, though, I believe, but still a disappointing effort from them on that end. And you have them looking on the defense here. Cornerback Trent McDuffie out of the University of Washington. Why is he the selection, and how key is it for them to land a number 2 corner?
And once again, with the Buffalo Bills, their team is very complete as a whole. A tough loss this week, but I think they are in that conversation for AFC favorites along with Kansas City. Those are 2 heavyweights in that conference. Trent McDuffie adds a little bit of nastiness to that secondary, can be a true number 2 corner. Obviously, this team is very well built top to bottom, but that number 2, number 3 corner could use a little work. Trent McDuffie would be another phenomenal addition to this secondary.
Right, like you said, Buffalo, really well built. Don't expect them to be at pick 13 when it comes to the actual NFL draft. That's why you guys have to be subscribed to keep up with this series as we go throughout the process. A lot can shift, a lot can change. Austin catches pretty much every single college football game possible and imaginable, so he's got every player you need to know about heading up to the NFL draft. We are several months away yet, but you don't want to miss out on all the updates as we go. Pick 14, we have the Green Bay Packers here, who did not look good today at all against the New Orleans Saints. Jameis Winston lit up that defense for 5 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers threw a couple picks. We even got to see Jordan Love for a little bit. And here you have them going with a wide receiver to help out Jordan Love eventually. That's Garrett Wilson from The Ohio State University. What's your thoughts on Wilson, and how does he help Jordan Love and Green Bay?
Garrett Wilson's a big-time playmaker for Ohio State. We've seen that he can be a true number 1 at some point in time. I think he's a little ways from that, but I think you're kind of going with some upside here. And the reason being for the Green Bay Packers, we don't know the future of Davante Adams, and we know Aaron Rodgers will be gone for sure after this season. So they have to be prepared for Jordan Love. They need to make sure that he's got the proper playmakers. And if Davante Adams is not there, they are in big trouble. They have a very nice running back, obviously, in Aaron Jones, but I don't think even Green Bay Packer fans are comfortable what they have at receiver once Davante Adams is gone or if he leaves. So Garrett Wilson, very interesting pick here at 14, but I think they need to go ahead and make this move, because if they don't take a receiver in the first couple of rounds, they are in some trouble.
Right, with everyone knowing that Aaron Rodgers' time in Green Bay is coming to a close, it's very likely that we see Davante Adams leave as well, leaving Green Bay in a terrible situation. Wide receiver is going to become a key need for them, and I think Garrett Wilson does fill the void, at least to some degree. Pick 15, we have the Cleveland Browns, a very narrow loss to the Kansas City Chiefs today. Again, I think this is a team that could really compete in the AFC, maybe even make it to the Super Bowl. They've got that type of roster. You have them going here with edge Drake Jackson, of course, Jadeveon Clowney, their latest acquisition in free agency, is there on a 1-year deal. Drake Jackson could fit in nicely as the replacement for him. What does Drake Jackson bring in terms of technique and his ability to get there off the edge?
See, in terms of where he's at right now, he's not far enough along the line to be like, this is going to be a really great pass rusher at the next level. However, I think there are some traits that you really like to see. He's quick off the edge. He's got really long arms. But, as for a technique standpoint, this is the guy you kind of want, to mold into. I don't think he's there right now. However, I think he has some of those teachable traits that you would really love to see. And for the Cleveland Browns, they're going to want somebody opposite of Myles Garrett. We've been saying this for the last 2 years now. They need to make sure that they get a true solid pass rusher outside of him. They added Clowney for this year, but outside of this year, you need to have a plan B, and that's where Cleveland could get really, really dangerous if they had another big-time pass rusher long term.
You and I both consider Cleveland to be one of the winners of last year's draft process. They did phenomenal on all 3 nights of the draft, and I think Drake Jackson would be a great way for them to start off day one in this year's draft as well. Like you said, the athleticism there. Across from Myles Garrett, that is an A-plus type of move here for the Cleveland Browns. Pick 16, now we have the New England Patriots, a 1-point loss today to the interdivision rival Miami Dolphins. Mac Jones looked pretty good. Didn't even want to keep his first ever career touchdown pass ball. I'm not really sure what's up with that. Focused on winning, I guess. But you have him going here with a wide receiver who hopefully he'll be throwing a lot more touchdown passes to. That's John Mechie III from Alabama. What does Mechie bring to the table as just the latest rendition of an Alabama receiver product?
Alabama consistently produces great receivers. John Mechie III, as the time will go on this season, you will see he is that big-time playmaker that you need. New England obviously is in a situation where they want to add talent on the perimeter. Jacoby Myers is a nice receiver. They added Nelson Aguilar, but I think you have to keep going and building that wide receiver room. I don't think you stop there. They thought that's what N'Keal Harry would be, but obviously they've quickly figured out that he is not that true franchise receiver. John Mechie III has that ability, big-time playmaker, and obviously there's a little bit of familiarity between Mac Jones and John Mechie.
Right, a collection of weapons here for New England is really what you want to have around a young quarterback like Mac Jones. He's going to be able to maximize these guys and make them really thrive there in New England. I love John Mechie reuniting with his college quarterback there in Foxborough. Pick 17, we have the Houston Texans here on the clock. David Culley gets his first career win as a head coach in a big-time win over the Jacksonville Jaguars that we talked about earlier. And here you have him going with a quarterback amidst all the Deshaun Watson legal issues. Desmond Ritter's the guy. I love this value at 17. Austin, how do you feel about Ritter here at this point?
I think this is really, really good value. This is also a guy that could potentially win the Heisman with how great Cincinnati's team is as a whole. Overall, I think he's one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in college football. I think he has true NFL potential. I know a lot of people feel that way as well, but his ability to make plays happen through the air and on the ground can also be a little bit of an improviser on top of that. Houston would be in love with this at number 17 because we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. And under the assumption that he is traded, which is very, very likely, you need to have a quarterback. They're not going to believe in Davis Mills. I can tell you that for free. So they will go ahead and realize that they made a mistake and go ahead and still take a quarterback at 17.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor is just a stopgap quarterback. Davis Mills, I don't necessarily see him as the long-term option there in Houston either. And with Deshaun Watson very likely being traded at some point, Desmond Ridder steps in as the franchise's quarterback and lead guy for the future. I love his talent. I love what he'll bring into Houston as a whole as well. Pick 18, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, who it'll seem like we are on repeat here with how many picks that they have in this first round. They have 3 of them because of some of their moves last offseason. They've done a good job putting themselves in a position to collect assets. And here at 18, you have them going with safety Brandon Joseph out of the University of Northwestern. You talked about the secondary being a key point of need for them. Ahmad Gardner was the pick earlier. Brandon Joseph now. How much better is this secondary after this selection?
Now, Brandon Joseph, really, really good instincts in the secondary. Northwestern has been a consistent defense, and he's a big reason why, kind of patrolling that safety spot. Not afraid to go up and make a tackle, but I think where his strengths is in coverage. So Brandon Joseph and the Philadelphia Eagles, very good pairing here. And through this draft, they're really able to reconstruct that entire secondary with the great moves that they've made during the draft. So Philadelphia doing very well in this mock.
Eagles fans should be really excited about trying to build up this secondary. That's really the key point of need for this team. Jalen Hurts looked really good today, which is a positive sign. So the Eagles are trending in the right direction for sure. Pick 19, we have the Cincinnati Bengals here on the clock. Pulled out an overtime win over the Minnesota Vikings. McPherson, their new kicker, obviously had a great day hitting a 53-yarder and the game-winning field goal itself. And here you have them going with offensive tackle Zion Nelson. Joe Burrow needs a little bit more help. We saw a lot of pressure on him all day long, him having to try and make plays off schedule. How will Zion Nelson help the Bengals?
Zion Nelson definitely is going to help in the run, has some potential to be good in the pass attack. However, I think the Cincinnati Bengals have to consider offensive line. They definitely have tried to put it into it, like Jackson Carman last year. Obviously they wanted to go with Jamar Chase with the first pick. I think that was the right move. at pick number 5. However, then they came back with Jackson Carman, who I didn't love as a prospect, and very well, you're going to have to look to address it once again. They thought Riley Reif was going to be an interesting project piece at right tackle, and I don't think long-term that's really going to work for them.
One quick point I want to make. Last year, Austin, you caught a lot of flack throughout this entire process for mocking pretty much almost consistently Jamar Chase to the Cincinnati Bengals. We got a lot of flack on the channel about that. In week 1 of his NFL career, he broke the century mark, caught a touchdown, and looks like an absolute star at the wide receiver position. You mocked it correctly, and it looks like a home run pick with some of his potential at the wide receiver position. I just want to touch on that quickly. Hopefully some of those same viewers giving us some flack back then will maybe give us a little bit more credit right now after his week 1 performance where he looked absolutely stellar. Pick 20, we have the Carolina Panthers here. I alluded to them earlier. Sam Darnold looked pretty good in their week 1 win, had a 5-yard touchdown run, connected with former Jet teammate Robbie Anderson for a big-time score. And here you have them going with an offensive tackle, Jackson Kirkland, to try and provide a little bit more support to Sam Darnold for the future. What could Jackson Kirkland bring to Carolina?
He could provide some much-needed pass protection. I think Carolina is not done building this offensive line, and we know very, very well that they are going to really try to give Sam Darnold all the tools that he can to be a great quarterback, right? So starting up front, they have some playmakers on the outside with Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, and obviously you have Christian McCaffrey. They're going to be looking to take a potential tight end and also an offensive tackle. So I think both are in play here at 20, but I think Jackson Kirkland's the bigger need right now.
Right, I like this a lot for Carolina. They've already accepted the 5th-year option on Sam Darnold, so you're almost locked into him for another year after this one. Giving him a tackle, saying, hey, let's see what he really is for us this year and then going into next year. I like that a lot for the Panthers, and I think that this is a very good move for them on draft night. Pick 21, we have the Denver Broncos. Of course, have the whole quarterback controversy. We'll see if that plays into your pick. It does. You have them going with Nevada quarterback Carson Strong, who I think is really under the radar. We talked about this a little bit last week. What could he bring to the Mile High City there in Denver?
Not a quarterback that is necessarily mobile nor an improviser, but if you want a guy that'll just stand back there and deliver passes on time, on target, and he also has a very strong arm. You know, it's kind of funny with his name. That's going to be the narrative all year long. But Carson Strong is going to be probably a great fit for Denver. We know historically Denver loves to take quarterbacks with big, strong arms. I think Carson Strong provides that to him. I think he's not going to get a lot of recognition like some of the other top quarterbacks playing at bigger programs, but he is starting to get finally recognized. I think he will slide in the first round, and I probably have him higher than most at 21, but I think as time goes on, Carson Strong will start to be in the major media's heads.
Right, and I think this is another player that you are ahead of on, especially compared to other media platforms, because when it comes down to it, when we get to pro days and Carson Strong's throwing the ball really far with a lot of velocity, I think a lot of scouts are going to fall in love with that. Plus, his film's going to back that up as well, and I think that's going to really, supplant itself into Denver's eyes when they're looking through this draft process, and they possibly will see Carson Strong as their franchise quarterback amidst the whole Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater quarterback battle. Pick 22 of the Los Angeles Chargers. They got their first win under new head coach Brandon Staley, and you have them going to help out that defense, going with an edge, George Karlaftis here out of Purdue. What's your thoughts on Karlaftis? How can he help the Chargers?
Karlaftis is going to be phenomenal against the run. He's going to be a good pass rusher as well. Just an all-around very, very good football player. I don't think he's the most dynamic athlete. He's not going to really, really wow you in that regard. But if you want to get just a really, really good football player, you are going to take a guy like George Karlaftis. I mean, he doesn't necessarily have the high upper tier. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Trey Hendrickson in a way. Very, very productive player, but in terms of athleticism, not the top tier in that regard. But the LA Chargers are going to be happy to take him, an eventual replacement, because we know that Melvin Ingram is no longer there, and they're going to want to address that edge spot, and I think that gets it done at 22.
A strong edge. He's going to be able to complement Joey Bosa. He's good with his hands in the run game, and I think that's really going to benefit this Chargers defense long term. Of course, getting an edge who can really help you on a cheap rookie deal is never a bad thing at all. Pick 23, we do have the Pittsburgh Steelers here. Najee Harris, just one quick note, did play every single offensive snap of the game, so it looks like he's going to be that do-it-all back, which we mocked many times last year throughout the process as well. Here we have quarterback Keaton Slovis out of USC going to Pittsburgh. there's a real question mark about what their long-term quarterback situation looks like. Do you love Keaton Slovis as a pick, or is this more of a projection you see happening without you necessarily loving the fit?
In terms of what he is as a prospect, I just wouldn't want to get in the business of taking a guy like Keaton Slovis. But I think in terms of what does Pittsburgh need, yes, they definitely will be considering quarterback. And I think they'll be kind of in big trouble if they roll into next year with Dwayne Haskins. Maybe they feel comfortable with him, but I wouldn't personally be as comfortable. Keaton Slovis has been deemed a good leader, a guy that can deliver the ball accurately. But I don't know in terms of upside if I really believe in him in that regard. But if you're looking for a guy that can just be consistent and you know what you're going to get from him week to week, I'd take a guy like Keaton Slovis, especially for Pittsburgh. They got a lot of playmakers, a lot of weapons. You don't have to play hero ball with this team. There's a lot of great players, offensively speaking, on this roster. So Pittsburgh goes ahead and takes Keaton Slovis.
Right. Strong defense, strong surrounding pieces on offense. Keaton Slovis doesn't have to come in and be a Patrick Mahomes type player for this organization to have success, especially with how good of a coach Mike Tomlin is. Moving into pick 24, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Had a phenomenal week one. Chandler Jones showed out. Kyler Murray looked phenomenal as well. DeAndre Hopkins did his thing. Very, very good team in general. And you have them addressing really the only real need on this team, honestly, in my opinion. That's cornerback. You have them going with Darian Kendrick, who, of course, was used to play for Clemson, transferred to Georgia. What does he bring at that cornerback position?
Another man guy. Definitely think that Arizona is going to be looking at corner for sure. They already have Byron Murphy in that secondary, but Kendrick's going to be a big-time playmaker at Georgia this whole season. And I think the Arizona Cardinals, considering quite a few corners have already gone off the board so far, I think they're going to consider themselves lucky at 24, still having a quality prospect like Darian Kendrick. Very well could have been a first-round pick last year had he decided to come out. I was kind of shocked when he went back, but I think overall very good selection for Arizona.
Right. This is a guy with pedigree. Could have been a first-round pick last year. We see him finally go in the first round in this mock draft, 24th overall to Arizona. Moving into 25, the New Orleans Saints, maybe the storyline of the week. Jameis Winston, 5 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara looked great. That defense went big. Marshawn Lattimore got a massive extension after his game today. 5 years, nearly $90 million. Now you have them going with another Ohio State product, which New Orleans has done many times. Going with Chris Olave, the wide receiver. There could have been a first-round pick himself last year, in my opinion. He goes now 25th overall. Why is he such a valuable wide receiver prospect?
He does a lot of things very, very well. Not a super explosive, dynamic athlete, like I mentioned previously in our last video, but he's a guy that just knows how to play the game. He can run routes really effectively, good after the catch, a guy that just seems to find the soft spot in the zone every single time. Chris Olave, great player, a true blanket for a guy like Jameis Winston. Having Michael Thomas and Chris Olave together for Jameis would be great for his development. And I think that's the direction they should seriously consider.
One quick side note here, Austin. I just have to ask you here. How soon is it too soon to start thinking of Jameis Winston as the long-term Saints starting quarterback?
I don't think it's going to take that long. I think when you look at him from the actual standpoint of, kind of remove your bias for Tampa and just look at his body of work, especially at this point in the year, I think he's going to have good weeks. I think he can be that franchise guy, and I think they're finally starting to realize that Sean Payton knew what he was doing last year by not playing him at all, hardly. So he was able to get him cheaper for another year, knowing that he could not afford him had he played well last season. I think overall great genius play, and Jameis Winston for himself could carve out a really nice career still.
Jameis Winston looked good all preseason long, looked phenomenal in week one against a team that is really, really good in the Green Bay Packers. I think Jameis Winston, we could seriously start considering him the long-term Saints starting quarterback, and I think it's a phenomenal fit there in Sean Payton's offense. Pick 26, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Yet again, this pick comes from Miami in some of the draft pick shuffling that they did last year before the draft. And you have them going with wide receiver George Pickens, finding yet another wide receiver for Jalen Hurts. Of course, Devonta Smith scored a touchdown today. What could Pickens bring as a complement piece to Devonta Smith?
So the thing about George Pickens is you already have your deep threat guy in Jalen Reagor. You have your guy that can really serve in the short to intermediate in Devonta Smith. But then you get your true red zone threat here in George Pickens, a guy that's 6'3", can high point the football in the red zone. I think you can kind of compare his game slightly to Mike Evans. I think Mike Evans is obviously a better player, but George Pickens has that kind of skill set. And for the Philadelphia Eagles, this is what they wanted JJ Arcega-Whiteside to be, a guy like that. But they have to go ahead and select George Pickens because obviously Arcega-Whiteside did not work out. But this guy's a tremendous talent. And, hopefully, even with the ACL tear, he can still be that guy.
All about the skill positions here for Philadelphia in this draft. Cornerback, safety, and a wide receiver. Greatly improved their roster already just with their first 3 picks of the draft, and they have plenty more on days 2 and 3 as well. Eagles fans, you have to be super excited for this draft process in terms of the overall assets that you all have for this draft. Pick 27, we have the New York Jets, their second time on the clock here. This one, of course, from the Seattle trade surrounding Jamal Adams. And you have them going here with tight end Jalen Weidermeyer out of the Texas A&M. Of course, Ryan Griffin probably not getting the job done at tight end. Zach Wilson needs a weapon. How helpful could Weidermeyer be in his development?
Weidermeyer, athletic tight end, good catch radius, decent after the run. But I think the New York Jets need that security blanket for Sam Darnold at the tight end spot. They did trade Chris Herndon, which was kind of puzzling. However, maybe they like what they had in the tight end room, but I think they'll come to find out that they do need to select a tight end. Weidermeyer can be a guy that can, have 600, 700, 800 potential receiving yards in a year. But I think that this is going to be one of the more quality tight ends in this draft. Obviously, him going at 27. I project a little bit here. I think some people have him as a second rounder, but I think he very well could sneak into that first round.
Right, the athleticism is huge here. If week one's any indication, Zach Wilson's going to be relying on Corey Davis and almost Corey Davis alone all year this year. So I think adding in a guy who's athletic could be a nice receiving target in Weidermeyer. I think that does make a lot of sense, trying to aid the development of your franchise quarterback. Pick 28, we have the Miami Dolphins here. This pick comes from San Francisco. Again, part of that whole 3-team swap with the Eagles and San Fran last year when the 49ers moved up for quarterback Trey Lance, who actually did make his debut today and looked pretty good. The Miami Dolphins here, though, you have them going with interior offensive lineman Tyler Linderbaum, a true center from Iowa, an All-American type player. Austin, we were watching the Iowa Hawkeyes together on Saturday. What does Tyler Linderbaum really bring to the table?
He's a smart player. He knows the protections. He knows what he has to do. He can really read a defense. But as you can see, this guy can get to that second level. And I had mentioned in the previous video his ability to have those key reach blocks, a guy that can really pave the way in the running game. And also he can hold up in pass protection, but I think he's better suited in the run. Miami hopefully can really establish that running game. Maybe Myles Gaskin can be that guy. However, they might look to take another running back in this draft. So Linderbaum can be that franchise center, or you can even have him play guard. He has that kind of skill set.
I love Linderbaum's fit here in Miami. They've had a little bit of revolving doors at the interior offensive line position. I think he could really provide some stability coming from a school like Iowa as well, which just produces so many offensive linemen consistently. I just think it's a match made in heaven here landing in Miami. Pick 29, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we don't exactly know where they'll be because of the Monday night matchup. That is not included in this, so they're 0-0 at the time we're recording this. But you have them going with offensive tackle Charles Cross. Of course, they ended up moving on from a tackle to the Kansas City Chiefs this past offseason. So does Charles Cross fit in as the long-term right tackle there?
I think for the Baltimore Ravens, they want to make sure they are sound up front because a lot of what their offense is obviously running the football. Charles Cross can really help them out in that regard. You are really hedging yourselves for if Alejandro Villanueva leaves this offseason, just considering he is on that one-year deal. Charles Cross can be that guy. Baltimore is not going to go into the year next year with some shaky components of that line. They are going to make sure it's completely built out and ready for Lamar to run behind.
Baltimore is one of the best run organizations in the entire NFL, in my opinion. They did a great job bringing in Villanueva this year as the long-term or short-term replacement, rather. We're able to upgrade some other positions on their football team in the first round, and then coming back this next year and finding their eventual long-term tackle, a guy like Charles Cross here from Mississippi State. I like this a lot for Baltimore, and I think this is probably what we will see them do on draft night is look at that tackle position in round 1. Pick 30, you have the Detroit Lions here from the Los Angeles Rams. This pick, of course, the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford flip. And you have them going with wide receiver Jahan Dotson, of course, very well known for this one-handed catch over Shaun Wade last year. What does he bring to the table for Detroit?
Jahan Dotson really caught my eye in their previous game against Wisconsin. He's an absolute stud. this is going to be a guy that will likely be on first-round radars pretty soon, just with his consistent ability to make plays, really, really good route runner. He can also take the top off the defense. So big-time playmaker, and the Detroit Lions need that in their wide receiver room. They will definitely address that during this draft.
Right. I think he's a big-time upgrade for them. You have them going with a quarterback pick too. You need to find a wide receiver, and Jahan Dotson, one of the better ones in this draft. I think phenomenal grab at pick 30 for Detroit. Pick 31 now, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course, the defending champions. Had a very nice close victory over the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday Night Football. And here you have them going with an interior offensive lineman, Ed Ingram from LSU. Austin, you're a big-time LSU guy. What could he bring to the table from Tampa Bay?
I think he's going to really help them out in the run game. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, replacing a guy like Alex Kappa could be a priority. I think Ed Ingram adds a little bit of an edge to this offensive line, and they're going to make sure that they keep Tom Brady upright. Ed Ingram has interesting upside as a pass protector, can be really good in the run as well. So very well could see him. There's not a lot of people mocking him in this range, but he has that ability to work up to this spot.
Tristan Wirfs, one of the best offensive tackles in the game already. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers know how to evaluate offensive line play, and I think Ed Ingram is a guy that does fit what they're looking to do scheme-wise. And I think they're going to really try and, continue to build up their run game as they move forward in Tom Brady's tenure there with the franchise. Now moving into the final pick of the first round. Again, like today's video if you haven't already, and subscribe if you did enjoy. We want you to be a part of all of these videos moving forward. We do have a jersey giveaway as well coming up. Very, very excited for that. Now, Austin, with the Kansas City Chiefs here on the clock, you have them going wide receiver Treylon Burks out of Arkansas. What could he bring in terms of a dynamic weapon for Kansas City?
Treylon Burks, another guy that's in that 6'3" range, big-time playmaker. He can make things happen after the catch as well. Kansas City really could get another red zone target with a guy like Treylon Burks, just considering they have guys that can really catch things in the middle of the field and make plays in that regard. Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, and they also have Travis Kelce, but getting a true red zone threat would be awesome in addition to Travis Kelce.
Right, Kansas City. Mecole Hardman's a really nice player, but I think he's best suited to be your number 3 wide receiver rather than your number 2. Treylon Burks comes in is a really nice player for them and kind of rounds out that whole offense in general. I think that Kansas City is going to continue running the AFC there. They've got such a good roster. Patrick Mahomes is amazing. Andy Reid, such a great coach. And just the rich get richer here with this selection. Treylon Burks, a phenomenal grab. Again, hopefully you all did enjoy today's video. Smash that like button, subscribe if you are new. Also, check out some of our socials in the links in the description. Austin, great job on this mock as well. I know you're going to be continuing to update this all year long. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any of those, and we'll catch you guys in the very next video.